starts from scratch. When using Figma, this section will walk you through all the steps. This section will walk through creating a component, adding variants, and moving on. You will create an alert banner with errors, success, and info variants. Variants can be added to a component, so we need to make sure the banner is a component first. Next, we'll walk through a series of steps outlined in sidebars to the right to start adding variants. This is what we're gonna make. With the component selected at the plus in the variants section. Turn this into a component. Control Shift K. Control Options. Arrows. That's coming. Click on the plus variants. This creates a new variant. The original component and the new one now live inside a new object called a component set. You can add variants using the purple button on the canvas. Click it to add a third variant. Heck yeah! Wait, where to go? Okay. Give it a new name. Okay, this is the type. So use default variant 2. Select the specific variant and highlight the name and change it to something described the alert will be used for. Repeat for each variant. You should end up with 3 variants with the following properties. Error, and then this last one will be info. Just hit follow for the big speech. Using alert banner, switch to the assets panel and search for banner. Having to like rely on the keyboard for this. There we go. Okay. This. That's all. The banner thumbnail. Notice how search shows a single thumbnail. Using the new variants. traditionally locked, so we're just setting up a component set with multiple sets of properties. Here we have a set of inputs which has different states, default, focus, error, etc., and two different types, input or select. It's the same. Examples already set up with properly style variants just like we did in the previous step, but we still need to name them. Component set. This is a component set. These are variants, but it's not called a variant set. Okay. Follow the additional instructions to the right. Figma start off creating an initial property. Let's name it food type. So type we'll also need a good second property. Figma created a default value for every property. Let's add more meaningful names. Select all the inputs on the left-hand column of the variant. Now add a value for the property. Select all the input on the left-hand column. Input. Let's add more meaningful names. Select all the inputs on the left-hand column. Select all the inputs on the left-hand column. Let's now add a value input for the type property. Repeat the same steps but with the other side called collect. This is called select. The state is default. Repeat the exact same steps to add additional values for your states. For our error state example, select both error variants and type in a new value inside the state prop. We call it error. Okay. Cat. Oh, we got dark real quick. Monkey! Okay. Get up here. Do you want to be on clip? Yeah, it's good. Very good. Really come by on No. Okay, so I need to do all of these biddies. Okay. Either. Alright, because that's default. focus. And then fit. I'm gonna do work. Error. Success. God, whenever I see mix, I have a heart attack. Deactivated. Wait. Yeah, I think it worked. Figma start clearing. Ooh, let's close it. This folder. Place folder. Guess that's it. Inspecting and ready to go up. Switch to the inspect panel. Developers can easily copy info about their inspect panel. What am I looking at? Okay. Next. Explore these example journeys to get some ideas of how they're set up. It's very fun. I built up the page. Avatars. Thank you. Sit down. Thank you. Sit down, please. You're like a baby. Select all the avatar frame and batch rename avatar. Select, name it all to where did this come from? Inspect. Ooh, waffle. We're learning something new. Avatar to avatar dash. Select all the fragment components. Create. No. Anti-create command set? See if I can create multiple components. Combine variants. It's going to be the same. Beyond this. Okay. Put your paws off the dinner table. Sticky notes. So cute. Search assets for art note. Say so. Note and open. Choose another variant. Search assets for art note. What? What? Wow. Searched it. Choose another variant. Switch one of the dots and switch the variants to true. Select one of the dots. One of the dots. Choose another variant. Okay. What the heck do you want me to do? Select search assets for art note. Okay, click that. Choose another variant. Select one of the dots and switch the variant to true. Switch the variant to true. It's already true. Select one of the dots. Oh, that dot. Bam. This example will show how much cleaner our assets panel is now that we are making use of variants. What do you say, Figma? Set of toggles for different platforms. Set. Baby. Set of toggles for different platforms. This set of variants include a platform property where iOS and Android variants of the switch can exist with the same component set. Damn. Oh my god, that's complex, but simplified. Select the instance of the switch component, try changing up the properties to see the different variations. Oh my god. switch Smith. None of my desktop shows. Like an instance of a print. Try changing up the team now the ice properties to customize your print. They have really cool. This example of a set of elements includes a device property, blueprint to create components that for multiple tablet and review on the desktop. But
Pin. Before
Spotify. It's a really good song by HNNY. Okay.
before we jump in and show you all the variants of goodness, we just want to talk briefly about what a variant is. And the simplest way to describe that really is that historically you've had a bunch of different components that you've been managing within your design files, and that can quickly get out of hand when you're consuming them in the assets panel. You can get to a situation where you're trying to search for a button, for example, in the assets panel, and you are surfaced with all of these other buttons coming up. Variants allows you to consolidate all of that into one single particular component. The best way to show you this is with an example. So I have this button here, which lives in, you can see our friends of Figma pinging off in the corner. We've got a variance set in here, and I have my component inside, and my default set. Notice on the left-hand side that the layers panel is slightly different. We have all of our different formatted inside this new component here. We call it this component set. This button over here then can be switched. Other than using the instance swapper over here, we can use our panel on the right-hand side. So I can change that state just using this menu over there. Secondly, we have our alignment to code. So if I zoom in a little bit on here, you'll see that traditionally when building out your coded components, you have a situation where you have your properties, and your properties can map to different values. This value here, we've got primary, which maps into my variant set over here for my primary button. My size maps down the bottom, and my focus state too. And then I also have this option over here, which is disabled and has an icon. So it really consolidates that experience, consolidates that consumption. Anthony, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I mean, I think that's a great point. One of the big things that's obviously difficult for us to interpret is exactly what type of code, what type of abstraction layers, what type of systems you might be using in your development environment, right? So for us to make big sweeping assumptions about the actual internal structures of things can be a little bit trickier. And what this provides you is with that layer that we know is translatable to anyone who's building components at any different layer. So however you choose to interpret those properties and values from your development side, you're going to have access to that kind of stuff directly within Figma, so you can actually communicate better with your team. Again, having that shared language with your development team, this is how we work faster together. We're all building the same product, right? So this is going to really make that a lot easier by understanding and getting closer to your components. That being said, obviously there's going to be some difference for how designers are thinking about things and how developers are working on it, but this is going to give us some of that shared language together. So.
Absolutely. Amazing summary. Thanks, Anthony. Right, with that in mind, let's jump in and start building some stuff. Firstly, I'm going to go ahead and create a tab bar variant component. What I have in my file already is just a few icons, and I want to create a tab bar that I'm going to use inside my app. So the first thing to do is to create my tab bar background. I know that my iPhone is set up at 375 wide, so I'm going to set that in here. I'm going to make this 80 high. What I want to do here is also just give it a nice black background, and then we've got our background set up nicely. After here, I want to make some tabs, so let's make 3 tabs. I know that this needs to be a third of the width, so 375 divided by 3. I'm going to make this 80 high too, and this is going to contain my Figma icon, like so.
You didn't want to do 3 repeating percentage?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to make sure that's centered. Then I'm going to duplicate this a few times and swap out that icon using the instance swapper to my play icon, and then lastly, make my search as well. Oh, search is the middle one. And I'm going to rename this tab / let's say home, tab / search, and tab / play. Then I'm going to turn these into some components at the top. Just drag these out of the way like so. And then I'm going to pull these to my tab bar. I want to center this one, pull this one over to the right. And this is going to be my tab bar for my home. So tab bar / home. And then I want to make...
It's going to around the map and the thing. I don't think a lot of people knew that you could do that you're actually doing that
awesome.
in the width panel, right? That was up in the properties panel over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I'm just going to duplicate this because I need to make my search version 2. So what I want to have is a state where I have my home button active, the other one's inactive. I can select these, and make these 50%. So we have a home that is active, search that is active. I can then turn these into their own components. And then if I select these, what you're going to notice is that on the right-hand side we have this combine as variants button up here. If I go and tap that, we get this new property on the outside, this purple dash border, which signifies that we have our variant set. I'll then open this menu. You'll notice that we have those nested components on the inside. This outline here can also be styled if you want. You can hide that purple outline. You can give it a different color. You can change the thickness of the border if you want to. You can align this to your design system to make it fit in with what your design system looks like. We've seen some companies remove that border entirely. Some of them style it a different way. It's entirely up to you. You're also going to notice that I probably forgot to add the third option. So to add that third option, I can click on my component set and tap plus icon. That will then duplicate this top one, and give me another option. I'll come back to the naming in a moment. So this one is variant 3 at the moment, and I know that I want to have this one inactive, and this one, oops, this one is active. So click on my tab bar again, and check out the properties panel. We'll notice that we just have property 1, which is not super useful. I know that this is going to be my menu, and I can flick that out when I want to use it on the front end. So I'm going to rename this as menu. And this last one that's popped up, this variant 3, is my play. So I can double click on that and type in play. If I want to as well, I can reorder these by clicking and dragging like so. That just gives you a bit more control about the consumption experience of your variant set. So I have my tab bar set up. I can alt and drag that out to create a copy and use that like so by going over to the properties panel again, dropping that drop down and flicking between the different states of my menu. We now see on the right hand side, I've got this little waiting for tab bar set up. I can click and drag, drop that in there, and we've got our tab bar ready to go. This is really cool, but we can actually take this to another level as well by adding something what we call Boolean value. So maybe in my app.
Oh my god, this is 1 hour and a half. How did you...
To another level as well. And we've got our tab hand side, I've got this little waiting for tab bar set up. I can click and drag, drop that in there, and we've got our tab bar ready to go. This is really cool, but we can actually take this to another level as well by adding something what we call Boolean value. So maybe in one part of my app, I have a situation where I've got a tab which is either on or off with a border. I can do that too. So if I select my tabs, I'm going to create a copy of these. I'm going to break these up now and rename them so they have a border property. So
File.
and let's just say I have it in here, but I'm going to switch it off just so it has its structure. So I have my tile set up. Cursor. How do I change it back? Screen capture. Oof, what happened? Um, um,
Oh, God. Oh.
Set up and Alt and drag that out to create a copy and use that like so by going to the properties panel again, drop down and flicking between the different states of my menu. We now see on the right hand side I've got this little waiting for tab bar set up. I can click and drag, drop that in there, and we've got our tab bar ready to go. This is really cool, but we can actually take this to another level as well by adding something what we call Boolean value. So maybe in one part of my app, I have a situation where I've got a tab which is either on or off with a border. I can do that too. So select my tabs. I'm going to create a copy of this. I'm going to break these up now and rename them so they have a border property. So I'm going to group them together like so. Command R on my keyboard to name them. I'm going to select current name / border. I then want these ones to be without a border, so I can rename these current name / no border. And then I need to create a border. So let's just create a rectangle in here. I'm going to make it 4 pixels high and 125 for the width. Anchor it to the bottom and give it a lovely red color. I want to rename my border, copy that and paste it into my other ones too. I'm going to turn these into a component at the top. And then we have a situation now where we have these states set up. I can drag box over these, combine them as a variant as well. And we get double properties now.
Wow.
So the first one is my tab. Second one is my border property. I can then duplicate this like so and flick that border on or off, which is great. We should probably have that as a bit more sophisticated. And maybe we can do something like a toggle. So if I select my variant like so and just change this to either true, yes, or so I've got true in here and false in here. And then on my tab here, we get this little switch. So I can turn that on or off. And there are 3 ways that we can use this, isn't there? What's the other 2?
Yeah, so you've got true, false, yes, no, and on, off. So some pretty standard Booleans that you might have. This is useful because not everything that you're going to have is necessarily going to be the actual like programmable true, false. So you've got a few other options that you can add in, and sometimes the word on might just make more sense than the word true for certain situations. So
yeah, absolutely. So then I could use that.
Good question. I don't know if 1 and 0 is supported today, but that's some good feedback.
1 and 2 here, yeah, that would be nice. So what you'll notice now is that in my variant set, I also have, if I select my component, I also have this border switch. I can ping on and off, and then in my instance, I can turn that border on or off, like so. So I can flip between my tabs, and I can flip between my border on or off. So a few very quick things that we can pull together to create quite a complex nested variant set within a variant set, and using our Boolean operations to take that to the next level. Anthony's now going to dive into something a little spicy, migration. Over to you, Anthony.
Yeah, in fact, before we get there, I think there was a couple great questions that came in that might be good to just sort of do it while we're looking at this particular example.
Sure.
We were looking at the plus button there, that was duplicating the first variant that you had in the variant set. So that's kind of like the main variant that you're going to have. It's what's going to show up in the assets panel. It's what's going to be duplicated when you hit that button.
Yeah, it's worth noting at this point that we treat the top left variant as the primary one. So if I see this in the assets panel, if I search for tab, for example, you notice that this one surfaces because it's this top left, and then this one surfaces because it's the primary one as well. So that's a great way to think about organizing your components, is to think that the top left one or the top one is the one that we're going to be surfacing in your assets panel.
Awesome, very cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to a little bit more complex example than what we've got here. We're going to be building up over the section as we go today. So we haven't put everything all out at once. We're going to try and add a few layers on so everybody can follow along as we go as well. So, great, I'll go ahead and share my screen here.
Awesome.
And just a quick confirmation that everyone can see my screen. Yeah. Can you see the Figma window?
I'm just going to stop my share. If you can go ahead and try again.
All right.
Yes, we're in.
Awesome. Is it the Figma window, correct? Is that what you said?
Yep.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. So let's build up a little bit from what we were just looking at, right? So the example that we just saw, we did a couple of really interesting things, right? So we started with having a property that we could turn on and off for this component. So we're able to say we want to switch between these different options, these different properties that we have, or sorry, different values of this one property. So this is what we would call something one-dimensional, right? There's a single row that we have, or in this case, a column that we have, and we're just switching between the states. Between in this case, it's kind of like a state that we're working from. what we're going to do now is just take this a little bit further, because the reason why we actually spend so much time on this was, and why we call it variants and not just states, is because you can actually do things multi-dimensionally as well. So when this project originally started, of course, states was one of our big ideas, in the sense that we want to say, hey, what if we could have a way that you can have an object that has, maybe a hover state, an active state, default state, all of those types of things. But by going a step further than that, we can actually do properties in both directions now. So not only can we have something like a state, but we could also add a type. We could also add, an action. Is it destructive? Is it a warning? That kind of thing. By having aggressive example, everything. Let's change some of the properties about these. Let's go ahead and I'm going to do back to the layers panel here. First, let's do a quick rename, right? Because this is still called button primary. So I'm going to do that fast for regex thing again. I'm going to search for the word primary and just replace it with the word secondary. So immediately we actually just batch change that in those sets of components. Now it's actually changed the way it looks as well. And you can use a couple really cool tools for this. So you see we have selection colors. Selection colors is the way that you can quickly select all fills, strokes, text color, anything at once, and change them all at once. So what I'm going to do is, I know I want this button to be a black outline button. So I know I'm going to want the text and the icon and the menu item to be black. I can just go to selection colors and change white to black, and it did not care where that white was applied on, and it just changed it all at once for me automatically. Quick way to do that. Second thing we want to do is we want to change the fills, right? Well, right now we don't have access to the fill layer because we only have the top level of the buttons selected. So another really cool trick is that if you have multiple things selected in your layers panel, you can use Enter and Shift Enter to quickly move in and out of groups of layers. So if I hit Enter once, you'll see it at least selecting all of those inner containers that I wanted to grab, where I have a color turned on right here. I'm just going to break that connection, and I can turn off that fill if I want, and I'm going to add a stroke on the outside. So you can see how quickly I was able to create a secondary button there. Now if I want to, I'm going to convert these to components again. I now have my variants. I've got the naming conventions the way that I want them. I've got everything set up the way that I want. Say combine as variants. I know this first property is type, again, as we just looked at a second ago. I know the second property is my icon, and the last one is this a menu? Does this have a menu option or not? If you wanted to have something that was a little bit more generalized, you might even say something like left icon and right icon, because then we're gonna look at how you could swap out those instances as well. This is just a quicker example to show you right here. So now, if we actually grab an instance of this, you'll see that we've got our button type. We can switch between our primary and secondary. We can turn on our icon. We can turn off our menu. Oh, so much power. I love it.
Anthony, just one more thing. Can you show the reordering of the properties in that too?
Yeah, great question. So look at this example here. What happens if I wanted secondary to be primary? And I have to know that this dimension, this vertical dimension here, is the secondary. And then let's make sure we turn off our auto list. And then if I want to, I can go down the other way as well, right? So I could say something like default. In case
from variant set, you notice you get it.
And maybe just have those on default forms. You now have an asset panel that has a little bit more expressiveness and easier to use, and you didn't have to create that massive variant up front as well. Along with that, you can also continue to use nesting. So swapping nested is still a great way to compose more complex components and things like that, especially because it's all going to be preserved in overrides now. So there's a huge update to how we preserve overrides, which I am so thrilled about and I've been waiting for. You can now, if we grab a component like this, for example, as I mentioned, we're going to use these two concepts together. So we've got our icons that are not variant components, and we have our button that is a variant component. If I go to my assets panel now, and I want to actually look at these examples, I've got my button and I've got my my icons here as well. One of the cool things that you can do directly from the assets panel is that if you hold down Option while you're dragging out from the library, you can replace components. But so if I were to grab a component over here and I hold down Option, it's going to swap out the component. I don't actually want that. I want to swap just the icon inside of it. So if you hold down Option and Command, you'll see that we can actually swap nested instances very quickly as well. So this is just a really quick way to swap. So just gotta make sure you have it. Make sure you actually get selected. There we go. And you can actually swap those out very quickly. And again, because we're able to preserve overrides, if I switch this icon off, if I switched to a different button type as well, so in this case, if I was doing this on that earlier example that I had, here, let's go ahead and just make another version of this. We'll give this a fill. Maybe we'll change the stroke here too as well. Wonderful. You'll see here that, and again, I'm going to have to give this a name. We'll call this, add a new variant here. So in this case, I'm going to go back to my component set and also just create another version of this. Awesome. And this is why we do office hours. We get to do things live. I love it. So you can see here now, those are all under icon. I don't want that. I want to add a new property here called type. And I'm going to have these two are type secondary, and these two are type primary. And then what I want to do is say that these two are icon true, and these two are on false. And that's a quick way to actually quickly update all of your properties as well. You'll see now when I select the component set, it actually reduced and collapsed all those duplicates and put them into the right groupings correctly too as well. But again, if I come back over here to my component and I select secondary, you can see that that replaced instance is still actually getting preserved. So that override is actually going to stay there as you change those things out. Same for if you override things like fills now too as well. There's a little bit of complexity with fills. You're going to have a structure internally that makes a little bit of sense for us to interpret what can actually be swapped out and what can be preserved. But now you can actually, there are ways if you have things like icons, you want to swap out icons, we can preserve fill layers. I did not that one correctly, so that's a bad example. I must have had when I copied it over. We'll be sure to show an example of how that works expectedly. But if you do find that, there's a good chance that if I look at these components, they actually don't share the exact same structure. And I can see that here that I've got one's basically a nested union with a couple shapes inside of it, and one's got a frame inside of it. So you want to make sure that there's a consistent structure to things that you want to actually preserve those properties for. And we're going to be doing some more announcements about all of that stuff too as well. So you're going to see some new updates and some tweets on that.
Anthony, just want to flick to the emoji values one, and then I can close up with the community spotlight.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go ahead. I just wanted to show off a couple of fun things that we have here.
Another useful resource, and this is going to be supercharged again once we release the next version of Auto Layout. Lastly, our boy Tom has done an excellent stickies file in the community. There's tons of excellent resources in here using really good necessary. There's a very fun about 10 times I like avatars. I'm definitely going to check it out. All right, so we've got, well, we have 4 minutes left of the hour, but we have plenty of time to have some questions.
Where can I get this community file?
Stars that Luis put together. If you go ahead and you grab your stars, you can go ahead and use it like ratings. This one's a better example and something that the development team actually find a lot of value in. I could also just as easily set these slider values to something that makes a bunch of sense, right? So instead of showing something silly like that, you might actually have these just as values of 0, 20, 50, or 25, 50, 75. So whatever can make sense for how your team works together. But know that you can experiment with those things. And as you might already be familiar with, we are very strong proponents of using emojis in layer names and file names and things like that. You can communicate a lot of information in a very small amount of space. If you want to find things where that might work for your team, I think that's a good thing to explore. Just keep in mind that for most developers, if that is going into code, it may not make the most sense for them. And using plain words is probably the best approach.
And just before we have a Q&A, just wanted to highlight a few things from the community that have already been shipped with the variants in mind. But Alexei's excellent material, definitely go and check that out if you're using material icons on your designs. Really well put together and using variants. The one is a table UI design system. I know a lot of people struggle with tables and how to build them in design tools. This is another really useful resource. And this is going to be supercharged again once we release the next version of Auto Layout. Lastly, our boy Tom has done an excellent stickies file in the community. There's tons of excellent resources in here using really good nested components. And the one part that he uses his own face about 10 times to highlight avatars. I'd definitely go and check it out if I was you.
Okay, just want to put this up, go into that community file. Oh God, I hate community. It's confusing. Okay, community Tom. Do this. There we go. Holy god. Material icons. Table UI. Okay. Follow. Alright. Thanks guys for tuning in.